Greetings. Welcome to part 2 of chapter 5, Theories of Motivation. For this part, I'm going to be talking about need-based theories of motivation. In the third and final part, I'll be talking about process-based theories. This part is actually pretty short. Start by talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'll bet a whole bunch of you have heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in some previous class. Basically, Maslow argues that in order for us to achieve what he called self-actualization, that top part of the hierarchy, we have to satisfy the needs that come before that, starting with our physiological needs, the base level of needs, followed by our safety and security needs, then our love and belonging needs, our self-esteem needs, and then finally, we can get to what Maslow was in fact interested in, which was self-actualization, basically being all that you can be. Now, much of Maslow's theory has been dismissed for very good reasons. It's not a theory that's actually testable. It does have, however, what we call face validity, which means on the face of it, it seems to make sense. Essentially, we know that in order for us to think about higher order needs, our lower level needs need to be taken care of, or at least, if not completely taken care of, substantially taken care of. Now, if we were to think about right now, in the time of COVID-19, I think if we were going to draw perhaps another layer down at the bottom, I bet you've seen this particular meme. Down here we would have Wi-Fi. Basically, without Wi-Fi, holy mackerel, without access to the internet, I mean, if you think it's hard getting by right now, imagine having no access to the internet. Holy mackerel, I can't even begin to imagine. If you're trying to understand why was everyone running to stock their shelves, their home shelves with toilet paper? Hello, world. That fits under what we'd call the physiological needs. Basically, when people are stressed in times of crisis, this is what gets their attention first. Hey, am I going to have enough water? Am I going to have shelter? Am I going to have the basic things that I need in order to survive? Am I going to have Wi-Fi? And then we start to think about, well, who's going to be with me? Is my family going to be with me? Are they going to feel safe? Am I going to be safe? Then it's the social stuff. Wait a minute, how do I stay connected with my friends? How do I stay connected with my larger family? And then we start thinking about things like, how do I feel about myself? Remember, that's what self-esteem is. And then how can I, even in a time of crisis, how can I be all that I can be? Okay. A second need-based theory is Herzberg's two-factor theory. And essentially what Herzberg says is that there are things that can make us very motivated and things that are what he called hygiene factors. They've just got to be there. So there's this set of things in the work setting that they've got to be there. And if they're not there, we will be unhappy. We will be dissatisfied. And these other things that when they're there, those are the things that actually motivate us. Those are the things that actually satisfy us. Okay, so let me break this down a little bit. If you look on the slide, you'll see hygiene factors, things like company policies, supervision, relationships with the boss, working conditions, salary, security. These are all things that make us unhappy when they're not there. When they are there, we're not necessarily happy. We're not necessarily motivated. We're not necessarily satisfied. When they aren't there, we are dissatisfied, unmotivated, unhappy. One more time. When they're not there, we're dissatisfied, unmotivated, unhappy. When they are there, no impact on our satisfaction, our motivation, our happiness. Let me take working conditions as an example. Right now, you're listening to this, you're watching this narrated PowerPoint, maybe in your bedroom, maybe in the basement, maybe at the kitchen table, who knows? The working conditions are probably less than ideal, right? You don't necessarily have all the privacy you need. The desk and chair, not necessarily the most comfortable. The lighting may not be ideal. In fact, your working conditions might be distracting. It might be that you see all these other things that you would rather be doing. So your working conditions, maybe not that great. So you might be dissatisfied as a result. On the other hand, when you are sitting in a room where the lighting is perfect, the desk chairs are okay, et cetera, that doesn't make you happy. In fact, odds are you wouldn't even notice it. Think about sitting in a regular classroom at, say, Norbert College. When the lights are doing what they're supposed to do you notice them? I doubt it. When the temperature in a classroom is what it should be, do you notice it? I doubt it. I mean, on all my years of teaching and having student course evaluations done, nobody has ever, in seriousness, at the end of a semester, filling out a SUTS or whatever, said, oh my God, the thing that made this class amazing was the lighting. Or the whiteboard, or the PowerPoints. Those are all working conditions. They don't make people happy or motivated. But when they're not good, imagine a light that's sort of dying and flickering. Oh my, how irritating is that, right? Or you find yourself in a setting where it's too loud for you to concentrate. That'll drive you crazy. Okay, so hygiene factors just make us unhappy when they're not the way they're supposed to be. This is true also for salary for most of us. When it's not what we think it should be, it makes us unhappy. When it's okay, we actually don't think about it that much. It doesn't motivate us. It can't. The research on salaries says that after a certain point, the relationship between salaries and motivation or satisfaction is just a straight line. It plateaus. Once our basic needs are pretty well met, salary no longer serves as a motivator. It becomes a hygiene factor. All right, well, let's talk about those motivators. These are the things that when they're present, they're very motivating. They're very satisfying. Like when we're getting stuff done, when we're achieving things, that is very motivating. When we're recognized for our hard work and our performance, that's motivating. When we have super interesting work, that's intrinsically motivating. When we're given more responsibility and it's something that we want, very motivating. And finally, opportunities for advancement, so this is promotions and growth, very motivating. So again, notice the difference. There's the stuff that when it's not there, it's demotivating. And the stuff that when it's there, very motivating. The final need-based theory is McClellan's. And he talks about 4, it looks like 3, but it's actually 4 different needs. The first one was the one that he was most interested in studying. This is based on research that started in the 1950s. It continues to be relevant today. He was most interested in need for achievement, which was abbreviated as NACH. Basically, people who have a high need for achievement want to do things better today than they've done them in the past. They like challenging goals, but not impossible goals. They want to be able to achieve those goals. They like moderate risk, not super high risk, not low risk. They like specific, immediate feedback. Remember when I talked about the basic model of motivation, and the example I used was the employee, maybe you, who wants feedback on how you're doing? Well, people with a high need for achievement want feedback. They want to know exactly how they're doing. That tells them if they need to ramp up their effort or if they can ease up a little bit. People with a high need for achievement feel personal responsibility and ownership for their work and the outcomes of that work. Now, with all four of these needs, it isn't that you only have one of these. It's that you're somewhere on the continuum for each of them. So you could have a really high need for achievement, a really high need for affiliation, a really high need for personalized power, and maybe a low need for socialized power. You're somewhere on the continuum for each. Now, how do you know if you have a high need for achievement? Well, I can tell you right now, most college students do. You do. It's part of the reason that you're in college. How can you tell? Well, are you the kind of person who at the end of the day thinks about how much you got done? Are you the kind of person who feels good when you're able to check things off your to-do list? Whether you write that list down or not, doesn't matter. Checking stuff off just makes you feel good. Are you the kind of person who likes to set goals for yourself? Who likes to keep track? Let me put it another way. Could you imagine taking a class and for an entire semester getting no feedback on how you were doing and being okay with that? I'll bet most of you would go crazy. I know I would. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Okay. I'm a person with a high need for achievement. When I was a student, if I was in a class where I didn't know how I was doing, that made me nuts. I wanted to know. I kept track of my grades so that I knew, for example, when I was going to take the second exam in a class, I mean, did I need to study at least as hard as I had studied for the first one? Or could I ease up? Again, people with a high need for achievement, they love challenging goals, moderate risk, lots of feedback, so they know exactly what they need to do to improve. Need for affiliation is this need for human companionship. Some of us are more socially oriented than others. This can be true whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, by the way. Remember, introvert versus extrovert is how you gather your energy. It's not about whether you like people or whether you're shy. Some of us don't have a high need for affiliation, at least not in the work setting. We're okay working more by ourselves. The final, what you see here, this need for power actually breaks into two different kinds. The first one, need for personalized power, is when you want to be able to influence other people because of what it will do for you. You want to influence other people because you think that will get you more status. You want to be a boss because it will get you more status. You want to be a boss because it means other people will have to respect you. You want to be a boss because it means you'll make more money. You want to be a boss because, fill in the blank, you get something personally out of it. That's a need for personalized power. A need for socialized power is you want to have influence so that you can make a difference for other people. You want to go to work in a nonprofit, for example, because you want to serve others. You want to be in charge of that operation, perhaps, because you feel as though that will give you the best shot at making decisions that will serve other people well. In other words, again, it's not about you in this case. It's about those other people. Most of the teachers that you've had over the course of your life, the really good ones anyway, had a high need for power, typically a high need for socialized power. Teaching is all about influencing. It's all about persuading people that the material we're covering matters, is useful, is interesting, etc., etc. Teaching is all about figuring out how to convey information in a meaningful and interesting way so that other people will integrate that information into their own being, if you will. Why? Well, the really good teachers want to have that influence because they truly believe, they sincerely believe that this will serve their students well going forward in their life. I mean, that's how I feel about organizational behavior. I feel as though what you learn in this class is going to make a positive difference for you. I'll be the first to admit it. I have a high need for socialized power. I don't actually care about status. I never wanted to have a high level of position so I could get a better parking spot, for example. I don't care about any of that. Rather, I care about being able to make a difference for people. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of chapter 5.